we are looking up to you. We are battled with this challenge. How are we going to move on? The only way we can move on is to be creative and innovative. And that's why I said that management of this program and organizers of this program, I think it is the right theme that you chose. The youth. The youth. The youth. So you see, how are you going to do this? What happened? When schools closed down, the teachers with the knowledge and skill that they have, the method of delivery, everything, they are going home. Go and stay in your room. No matter what you know, COVID says that, stay home. Their children, they come to school, they interact with their peers, with their teachers, do everything. They said that, hey, go home. Now things have changed. How are we going to manage this? Do you know the teachers, those who became the teachers, their parents? Their parents became the teachers. But the children believe their teachers more than their parents. Do you know that? They believe they trust their teachers more than their parents. My boy, when he comes home and they give him an assignment, I remember one time, a teacher I taught at the basic school taught him, I met him at the secondary school, taught him, and sat in my lecture room at the university, was teaching the private school where my child was. And then the boy was given assignment. When he came home, he was doing the assignment, and I said, no, this one, wait, the way you are going about it, I don't think it's the right way. You can do it this way, say, no. That is how the teacher taught me to do it. Because the child knows that if I know how to do it, I wouldn't have sent him to the teacher. You get it? So they trust their teachers. Now the parents are now acting as teachers. Do they have the kind of knowledge you acquired as a trained teacher? Do they have that skill? How to deliver the instruction? Do they have it? And that is what makes the difference. That is why I always say that teaching is a profession and not a practice. The fact that you sat in the classroom and you were taught and you knew how teaching went on, and then you also come and stand in the classroom and teach, doesn't mean that you are a professional teacher. You are not. I salute teachers. It is when the children stayed home that parents got to know the essence of teachers. In Akan, there is an adage, and they said that until boy develops on your buttocks, you never realize the importance of buttocks, because when we are talking about the important parts of the body, hey, when you are blind, after that, when you are in trouble, when you are deaf, you are in trouble. That's all that we say. No one talks about the buttocks, but the day boy will develop on the buttocks, that's where you realize the importance of buttocks. So education is key. Parents begin to feel the heat when the children went home. Now, children have been cut off from certain things. Socialization is out. Those are some of the challenges that came up. Socialization is out. And you know the effect of socialization. You know it. You know the effect of socialization. When learners are cut away from socializing, now they are developing certain habits. 5 months staying at home. The habit they are developing is that they are with their parents always, their siblings, and they don't see other people. So if the house where they are is a house that they always insult, then they know that that is what we know. They don't see the other side of it. And they are going to develop that. So in the future, what we call connectivity, network connectivity, socialization, that will help. They are losing that. That social intelligence is being missing from our children. And then interacting with their peers, the teacher is also missing. The teacher is also resting and resting. I hope you understand that. The teacher is resting and resting, because if you don't practice what you know, you rust. So because of that, even when school reopens, we are waiting for what we call the normal time. Sometimes this is the normal time. Some of the times we say this is the normal time. We are waiting for the normal times. So if what we claim to be the normal time comes up and the teachers go back, there's the need for us to organize in-service training for them, to rekindle them what they have forgotten, so that they'll be able to pick it up and then continue to interact with the learners. Now, what next? The effects. Children have stayed at home. At that time, how were we going to deliver? How were we going to send the information to them? So that is where technology became very important. Because technology itself is something that extends human experience. Human being can do something, you get to a point you are stuck, and you need technology to move on. I want to call someone who is in Tema right now. Then I'll shout, hey, Kwajo, can the person hear me? But with technology, I can read it. It means that technology extends human experience. So we have to use technology. But do you know what? Some of the schools started using WhatsApp. They created WhatsApp group for their classes, giving them assignments. The children will write everything, take a snapshot and send it and all that. That is where innovativeness comes in. Then there's something we call Zoom and others, video conferencing. We are talking about webinar, right? And other things that we never thought of using. Now we are using them. So it means that we are moving from one level to the other. New things have been introduced now. But the challenge here is that the learners are now stuck. Look at the period that they have missed in school. How are we going to make the difference? And the kind of effects of COVID-19 on their make it. If you are a teacher and all you know is you get up in the morning, prepare your lesson notes, prepare your materials, and then put things together, move straight to the classroom. You teach, the children come for you, you interact with them, give them assignment and everything, and that is all you know. The COVID is telling you that you are lacking something. It is not enough because now you are redundant. There is nothing you can do. You have no role to play because you have missed something. And what you have missed is the use. When you go home, I want to give you assignment. I'll not give the answer. Yes, assignment. Of course, as a teacher, I have to give assignment. You know that. My time is limited. I have been signaled, but I have because I'm not here to give answers. I'm only here to set the ball rolling for discussion. Because I'll give you assignment. And the assignment is that when you go home, take dry soil Dry loamy soil. Say dry loamy soil. I like the voices. Now take dry loamy soil into 2 containers, the same kind of soil into 2 containers. Put them in a room somewhere. Leave it for 1 month. Go and look at them and see whether there are changes. You'll not see any change. Now after some time, start pouring clean water on one of them from time to time. In the next 2 weeks, you'll see weeds sprouting out of it. Do you see that? Weeds sprouting out of that. It means that the dry soil you see there has life in it. There is some power in it. It can germinate, but because it hasn't gotten the necessary push, it hasn't gotten the necessary conditions, so the weeds are resting in there. I'm telling you, the power is in you, the youth. You have it. Now, this is the time. You are not pushed to the wall. We are looking at you. How are we going to control these things? Now, the effect that is on the learners, the gap that is left, how are we going to make the difference? Are we going to think of innovative ways, creative ways, right? Go back. Open the door. And then when you open the door of wisdom, knowledge, and all that, you have the keys. And then if like our deputy said, if the ministry can do everything, we'll not call you here. But the ministry believes that the youth has all the power to do it. So we are looking at the gap. And that is what is important. The gap, that is what is important. So the technology, I have not mentioned them, but because we are going to discuss, as and when the issues come up, we try to come in here and there. But you see, one more advice that I'll give to, especially our students, let's understand that now we are imbibing in technology, something we call online learning. It comes with its own challenges. Now, when I mounted my course, the university, I mounted my course online. Some students will call and say, you know something, the first quiz that I didn't do some. And I asked him, why didn't you do it? Say, why I am? I'm in a remote place and there is no internet. So I didn't know that. I said, okay, fine. So that is the excuse. And he said, then my bundle too. It's too expensive. And others say, fine. Now, we are not in normal times. Then I ask a simple question. When you are applying, how did you apply? Say, I applied online. Were you at where you were? Saying, but I went to Tamale to apply. Fine. If you went to Tamale to apply online, and now the exams you are doing that to promote you to the next level, that one you don't have internet. That one you are coming out with complaints. What are we talking about? Because when you come to campus, you are talking about data. When you come to campus, you are going to pay for rent. My boy, Cape Coast, private, hostel. They are 3 in the room, and I pay 1,800 for the year. And I think that is cool. Or 1,800. Please, 1 more minute, and now I will come out. So I pay 1,800 for a year. Then, if you calculate 1,800 for the year, you are not coming to make photocopies and buy books. So, assuming you are paying, you calculate that and have about 2,500. Are you going to spend 2,500 on bundle? That's not the case. So it is time we have to tune our mind that universities and institutions, the government has already played a role by giving support to institutions. Books, when there was the lockdown, supplied books, right? And then negotiated with some of the network providers. Bundles were reduced, even for the tertiary government institutions. When you get on their learning management system, you are not charged for anything. These are some of the efforts that government made to ensure that education will still move on. And that is why, you see, we don't have to compromise quality with education. So government is doing everything to ensure that there's quality. But there is still more to be done. And that is why we are here, to ensure that education, the kind of lapses that has come, this is where we find ourselves. How can we bring, and how can you introduce other things to move on? I wish I have all the time to continue, but I have been alerted. So I'll draw the curtain here. Thank you very much for listening to me. Right. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Daniel. The catchphrase is that we should see COVID as a challenge, not a problem, and try to see opportunities from this challenge. Having said this, let me quickly move to the panel and introduce our moderator for today, our own affable Akwesi Afrifa, PRO of YEA and anchor, news anchor at Metro TV. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. MC. Oh, I thought you were giving me a proper round of applause. It's important to receive the acknowledgement very well. And then let's give another round of applause for our guest speaker. And he's touched on a lot of points that most of which we have jotted here. He spoke about access and whether you want to come to the university to pay for all the things that you have to pay for, or you use the money to buy internet. We'll still pose some questions in the course of the discussion, because we are not talking only about university students, but we are talking about students from the kindergarten right up till the university. And we have statistics to show that even those below, or those from kindergarten up to the junior high school, had up to 9.2 million people who have been affected. Here in Ghana alone, university students or tertiary students form only 500,000 people. So that's a small percentage. We'll look at the discourse and go into it in detail. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. I'll quickly introduce my panel members, and then we can begin to vote on. To my extreme left is Ms. Carla Fojo from Faith Montessori School. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me up, please. Ms. Carla Fojo. And then next to her is Dr. Ama Boafuatha from University of Ghana. Ladies and gentlemen, Doctor is also a member of the panel. Eric Opoku-Banfo is from Dodowa Newton School. Ladies and gentlemen. And then one very important member of the panel this morning, she's going to share ideas from the senior high school. She herself has been affected, how it has affected her, how she's coping, and what she's been doing with her teachers and herself as student, with her parents, whether her parents is getting themselves involved in the whole process, especially in this COVID period. Ladies and gentlemen, Gloria Jane Kuhlman is from Armed Forces Senior High School. And then finally, Isaac J. Hyde is the president of NUCS, who is seated to my immediate left. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us, Isaac, as well. And then you can give a round of applause to yourself for finding the time to participate in this very august discussions that we are going to have this morning. We have people watching us online. This is the National Youth Authority. We are in every district here in Ghana, but we have done this one across the 10 traditional regions of the country. And so you would find us and you'd find our people who are watching from all over the country. Can we acknowledge them as well? Can we, those of us here can clap for them, and those watching us online can wave at us. In the course of the discussions, we'll try as much to take questions from them. The protocols are that I'm going to go 2 rounds of questions with the panel members, and then I come to you, the audience, including those of us online. If you are not able to join us here, or even from any of the Zoom meetings, please follow us on our social media pages. We are on Twitter, we are on Facebook, we are live on Facebook, and I'm told we are live on Oman FM as well. You can still put up your comments. We'll try as much as possible to get it or make it very interactive. So yes, I'll come to my panel now and begin with my questions. I have about 4 thematic areas that in the course of the event we are going to be addressing, because I'm not too much enthused about the rhetorics. We are here because, according to the authorities of the NYE, we want to find practical solutions. So we want to be looking at the how. We talk about technology, we talk about the fact that we need to put ourselves into it, we need to be able to match up to the times that we are in. But how do we do it? We have had the problem of access. I wrote down the problem of economic empowerment. Those who don't have electricity in their areas, who are not able to watch TV from their homes, wherever they are. I mean, we are privileged to be here in Accra and have access to all of these. How do we ensure quality as well? And then finally, how do our parents also get involved? I'm sure, well, I'll begin this one with you. I'll take your initial comments on how all of us will be able to mitigate the challenge of COVID in education. So let me begin this with you, Hyde.
Right. Thank you very much, and greetings to my fellow students here. Concerning the issue about COVID, I think largely we all share a common concern of being affected. Unfortunately, more often than not, when we talk about education in this space, everybody sort of thinks of the university students, but I believe that at this stage, we have the nurses and midwives who practically would have to use practicals for their a lot of their academic exercises. You also have the case of the teacher trainees, and of course, those in the TVET areas. The biggest challenge also has to do with preparedness, because when this thing came into being, a lot of our schools were unprepared. We didn't have the learning management systems in place. And amazingly, in this 21st century, a school in Ghana has had to recall its students in September for them to come and finish the exercise because they were not prepared for this. The learning management systems were in place, but were not being used. I mean, I'm a law student of GIMPA, and I will tell you that throughout my stay on campus, I didn't ever use the e-learning system. And so preparation must meet opportunity. And much as we identify challenges with the COVID as it comes in, it has also exposed the weaknesses for which we need to put in place the necessary investments and mechanisms to forestall any future event. It could be that the next calamity that may befall us may not necessarily be about COVID. But assuming today we have a situation where the West Africa Examination Council is not functional because maybe the partner countries, British West Africa, decides not to function again. At what point, where do we move on side that the certificates that will be issued from Ghana will be accepted in Kenya, will be accepted in the UK? And that is what I'm talking about, standardization at the education front. How competitive will our products be? It is for this reason that I believe that this platform giving us creates a level platform for our perspective to be heard by the requisite authorities. And so I'm hopeful that we shall come out positive from this.
So you believe that from the onset, we should begin to standardize the educational system?
Yes, I mean, when we set a, that way, you are able to know where you are moving from and where you are going, because it's a policy decision. Because one, if you decide that you are going to go by e-learning means that a lot of the contact hours has been reduced because we needed to adapt to the e-learning system. And so ordinarily you could go to class for, let's say, 4 credit hours, 3 credit hours, but on the e-learning platform, you've got to do 2 hours of maximum. And it means that you need to compare to the UK, because sometimes when you're applying to schools in the UK, you may be asked, how many contact hours have you done? Does that mean that eventually you will not be able to apply to a school in the UK for you to be accepted? I mean, one of the issues that we're concerned about, as stakeholders when schools were going to be closed, was the issue of what then happens to our students if they have to compete. Because some of the recommendations which have come was that you could, award the students marks for them to graduate without necessarily having to write a final exams. But the experts in the field needed to raise some of these possible outcomes, for which reason I believe the government of the day had to take the decision of going through the e-learning process, or eventually having to force students to go back to school in an improvised manner in order to meet up the expectations of global standards.
Right, so let me come to you, Gloria. Are you still in school? You are still in school. You have your second year. It means you have your seniors writing the exams now.
Yes.
The WASI, and you should be preparing for it in the next year.
Yes.
You want to say anything to them?
Well, first of all, I'd like to apologize on the behalf of the seniors due to the behavior they've portrayed on social media. In general, it's very appalling and very sad to see that those we are looking up to are doing this, going to the extent of insulting the president. That's, I don't know what. It's very disheartening.
Oh, you want to do a better round of applause for her? I mean, we've seen videos of the attacks on the Ministry of Education, on the president. They have gone back to apologize. But on this platform, this is a National Youth Authority. We take care of everybody if you are youth. If you classify as youth according to the AU Charter or the UN Charter. So, I mean, that's a good one. But let's continue.
Yeah, and also, I see this free SHS to be a very great opportunity because back in the days, I'm sure people struggled to be able to access secondary education. And here lies the case, we have it, and then we are mismanaging it. We are not grateful. Olivatus, you're always asking for more. Meanwhile, you have to be content with what you've been given. So we're very grateful to the president for this free SHS initiative. It's been very, very helpful because, to be frank, even comparing the rate of teenage pregnancy to this 4 years that the president has been on the seat, you see there's a massive improvement. So thank you very much, Mr. President.
All right, I'll come back to you with my question on COVID, but let me come to you, Eric. For you, this is your initial comment. How do you think innovation, creativity in education, in the field of education, we as a youth can put our minds together and be able to overcome it?
Thank you very much. I think that the impact of COVID on our educational system is quite obvious, staring at us in the face. And so it requires a lot of innovation. In the school system, we have put a lot of things. The Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Health came out with directive guidelines and protocols that schools can follow,
Exactly.
so that they can stay safe. And the government has spent a lot of money purchasing PPEs for schools. We put them into good use. Now, I think 31st of May, the president is restrictions for final year students to go and complete their courses.
Right.
These are the protocols that we observe in schools. Hand washing regular. Every 1 hour, students must wash their hands. Number 2, the social distance. So in a class situation of about 40 to 50, we split the class into, let's say, 3. So you have an average of 15 to 16 students per teacher. So what we do is that after every period, the teacher and the students come out of the class to do hand washing. Every student has been provided with, and that's what we use. In the educational system, we have discouraged the use of face because the expert will tell us that it's not completely 100%
enough.
Yes, it's just like a lady wearing flare skirt without underpants. When the wind blows,
that's a very youthful example. That's a very youthful one. But let's
when the wind blows, there's disaster. Yeah, so we are using the face mask, and we have sanitizers. Each student has been given a sanitizer. So intermittently, you use the sanitizers, and we observe the social distancing protocols. That's it. Every 15 to 1 teacher, and that is helping a lot.
That's a conference of senior high schools in Dodua, or?
Yes, basic schools.
Basic schools.
Yes, I'm the chair of the basic school.
So that's how you are battling the COVID.
Exactly.
For the Form 3 people who have been asked to come.
Exactly.
But let me come to you, Doc. How are you? This is your initial comment. But practically, are you probably with your students mitigating coronavirus?
Okay, so I don't know whether to say that my institution were fortunate enough. We already have a learning management system in place. So I think—
That's the University of Ghana.
Yes. We use a Sakai learning management system. So prior to COVID, it was already in place, though not used as much as we are using it now. But then we also have a distance education department, which uses it a lot more. So when COVID came, DE led the way because we already have modules and teaching materials already prepared for some of these things. So all we had to do was train lecturers. So lecturers were trained and tutors were trained. So that's basically how we went about it. Until, final year students were asked to come on campus. But even when they came on campus, the exam was still done on the learning management system. But then it was to enable those who are not comfortable with their networks at home to have access to the network on campus, which is stronger and better than what they might have at home. So it wasn't too difficult transitioning, even though it came with challenges. It calls for discipline and making up our minds that if we want to progress, then we need to take certain things into consideration. If you want to finish and graduate on time and not have students waiting 2 years before graduation, then we need to accept that these are difficult times, and we need to accept that to move on, we need to put ourselves to the task that we will make it. So for Legon, I think that's how we've handled it so far.
Everyone else has become a distant learning student.
Yes.
All right, so let me come to you, Ms. Kala. Faith Montessori, well, you are also in the education sector. How have you practically put yourselves together within this period?
For us being in the private sector, we actually migrated onto Google Classroom. And so we've been having lessons regularly with the students on Google Classroom. We replicate the normal school day timetable, and students must appear online to take their scheduled classes with their teachers. For us, the issues that we definitely faced in the beginning was having the students get familiar with this new process of learning, communicating with parents to ensure their cooperation and the cooperation of their wards. Definitely being able to be flexible with your teaching, realizing that you're using a different medium. You're not standing in front of the students anymore, and you are not catching them if they try to misbehave. As our speaker told us, they could be going onto a different page whilst you were communicating with them, but finding means and ways of keeping them focused and progressing with the curriculum that was in place.
Yeah, so I'll begin this one with you and then follow up from the point that you have made. And this brings me to the point of access. You use Google Classroom. Right now, everyone understands that, yes, we need to use technology. We need to get online. We need to change the ways and methods of educating ourselves. Did you have the problem, or was that a challenge of people who don't have access to internet, or who are not able to purchase internet and all of that? There's that problem. Did you face it, and how did you overcome it?
I would say for the majority of our students, that was not an issue, but we did have the case where an individual did not have a device. Their parents had not purchased a laptop or a phone for them, which they could then use to access the class. So in the beginning, that then became a requirement for the parent to get their ward back in school. I really did appreciate the example of having to pay rent, having to put up this financial support to get your child to school physically, being now translated into, I need to buy my child a laptop, I need to buy my child data. So parents did have to make that investment to keep, yeah.
No, you are at University of Ghana. You have a lot more students who are spread all over the country, who are from, we can talk about the economic empowerment problem, people who are from very impoverished areas and cannot be able to buy a laptop, for example. Even if they have the money, there is no internet access. And you want them to use the distance learning. All of these instances, I saw people who said the lectures had been made and then put on YouTube. So at a later date, they had to go on YouTube if they had internet and go and listen to it without the opportunity of asking questions, without the opportunity of being able to understand exactly what the teacher is.
People definitely will fall in the category of those who couldn't access the live interaction, because interacting on Zoom requires that you would have a device, like Carla mentioned. But most students we know have phones. Almost every student will have a smartphone, if not all students. And what happened was that because when the COVID set in, I don't know if it was an arrangement between the university or government initiative, but then they all had access to SIM cards from, I think, Vodafone and later on MTN, so that every month some amount of data was given to students free of charge.
Right.
They gave faculty as well. So this was supposed to be the support that we would use in getting online. For some people, they will tell you that the network is not good in where they are. So we would encourage them, when you know you have a class, please move to an area where you know the network is better. Moving there and being able to access is better than staying home, perhaps, and not being able to.
So it was a case of getting them to adapt necessarily rather than providing a conducive environment for them or conducive platform for them?
As for the adaptation, we all had to adapt. We all had to adapt because we're also not used to staying at one place at home and then teaching online. But then, like we said earlier, when difficult circumstances come up or difficult situations come up, we need to adapt if we want to make it work. So we all had to adapt in one way or the other.
Eric, this is a new normal. Before your students came back to school and you began observing all the protocols, and did you have to get them to adapt necessarily, find ways and means of paying for their internet access? Did you use internet and all of that?
We have to be realistic.
Exactly.
We have to be very practical and realistic. Technology or the use of technology is not applicable to every situation. We have schools in every corner of the country, and we all know the internet challenges in the system. We all know the cost of internet, etc. So I, for instance, managing a basic school, I believe that we can still have a face-to-face interaction with the children. That kind of feeling where learners interact with their facilitators is fantastic and cannot be compared to internet. Internet is good, but it will fit certain situations, especially Accra and other big cities, but not all places.
Now, there are only 22% of households here in Ghana who have access to internet. And so you have more than 60-65% of households, if you collect them in Ghana here,
okay,
who do not have access to internet.
That is the point I'm making.
That's the question
exactly.
I'm asking.
So I think that the government is doing very well. They have provided us with all the necessary things. We have what we do is that the teacher in charge of the gun will be the first person to arrive. So before we admit anybody in the school premises, we check your temperature. You go and wash your hands before you get into the classroom. We have a school-based COVID team, which is linked with the district COVID team. So when there is any suspected case, then we have to call and handle the situation. Sent every school a suspected case, and then you call on the COVID team, the district COVID team to manage. So I'm sure that if we follow the guidelines that the Ghana Education Service, Ministry of Health has put in place, we'll get our children safe, and then we'll run our educational system. That in September,
we're not talking about speculation. What do you think as an expert? You are in the field. You are in the education field.
Yes, my minister,
what do you think?
When was interviewed this week, made mention of January, that schools are not in a hurry to come back. The president is restriction for just final year students to go and then complete. So I'm sure there are a lot of things in place to make sure that the students can come. For me, based on the experience that we have had handling the final year students, I believe that upper primary to JHS can begin to come. SHS can go. And when we observe the course very well, it will work well. Now, the key point here is that we should be able to reduce the number of children in a classroom. We have to split classes so that we can effectively manage the social distance. Because the COVID has to do with that. The more you have contact,
that would mean we do triple track, or we do.
If we can bring the shift system back for a while, whilst we wait on the expert to come out with a vaccine, the shift so that we can make use of the numbers. We can manage. The second cycle, they are running the gold and green track because of the numbers. Why don't we bring the shift system back? Or why don't we divide classes and have an open air class?
Right.
You understand? 2 under 3
right.
And all those.
So let me come. How has it been for you in the house? Have you been using your phone, your computer? Have your lecturers or your teachers been interacting with you enough? Do you feel you are getting what you need in school?
Well, for me in particular, my teachers in school registered with the Schoology app. So we're having lessons online. They constantly give us assignments, although it's not virtual. They give us assignments. So when you come on the app, you check it out and you do the work and you submit. So that's what we're doing. And my mom also arranged personal classes for me. That's for French in particular. So, and also alongside, I used to go normally to Sunny FM. I go there, learn from some of the people there, learn a few tips on how to regulate like some of the devices in the station, how to present, and meet some other people. So I really took advantage of this time that I was given because
So-
everything bad has a good side. So yeah.
This is exactly what our guest speaker was talking about, how to use your time, especially within this period of COVID. So let me come to you, Hyde. I mean, you are the president of all the students we find around. Have you interacted with your people? How has it been for them? Have they enjoyed the period having to learn from home, having to learn online? What has been the challenges for them?
Well, I think that largely the inconvenience is there for everybody, and we all saw it. And we need to recount it from the times. You realize that when the president gave the directive that we are going to close down schools, we're in the heat of the lockdown, the period where movement was restricted, and some places in Accra and Kumasi. So around this period, when schools like University of Ghana had asked their students that they can go for SIM cards, which were zero rated, people even had challenges going to those places because the understanding was that if the place is on a lockdown, how do I get access to it? And so the inconvenience is great. I must also say that according to the World Bank, over 1.2 million Ghanaian households do not have access to electricity. And so accessibility was a key challenge.
Exactly.
And if you talk about accessibility, it has various components. One, before somebody can even access an e-learning platform, the person needs a gadget. So then the cost factor comes in. And we cannot assume that every student technically is supposed to have a mobile phone or a laptop when we have not made efforts in ensuring that each and every student has that material. Beyond that, also the cost of data. Eventually, yes, based on some interactions here and then government makes some wonderful interventions. However, it is one thing you've been said that, okay, you can access the system free, and another being in a locality or an environment that can give you free, easy connectivity. Because you go to some places in the Upper East, even here in Accra, so there are some open areas in Accra where access to internet is still a challenge. And so that was that other thing.
I mean, I've been to places here in Ghana where even network, not internet data, network to be able to make calls is a problem.
Sure. And then, of course, you also look at the aspect of the psychological effect, because around this time we're dealing with something that we didn't know much about. So the insecurities. I mean, our parents are not going to work. We are all home. We didn't know what was coming. I mean, some of us were made to believe that, I mean, speaking for all, that COVID is like a rapture. Jesus is coming. So everybody was sort of insecure. And so the psychological effect of having to prepare for exams online was also a challenge. Then, of course, adaptation. Like I said, the e-learning cost. School fees is in two components. We are the academic user facility fee and the residential user facility fee. One would have expected that when schools were closed around this period, some intervention would have been made to reduce the cost of school fees. But students were still being asked to pay their fees. And so one of the challenges when we met the president was to put before him that we need a certain intervention in that arena, because now our parents were not going to the market, people's offices have closed, and we were still being asked to pay school fees at this stage before we can access the learning management system. And so these were the challenges. However, I must also say that some interventions, the Ministry of Education and Ministry of Communication came up with a zero rating of some platforms. Except that, you see, the challenge that also came with, it favored more of the public universities who already had some of these learning management systems in place. But 60% of our private universities, majority of them didn't have this thing in place at all. And as I speak to you, some of the private universities are now even writing their exams. And what it meant was that when the zero rating happened, it happened on those whose systems were on the Ministry of Education platform. Now, for platforms like Google Classroom, Zoom, and the rest, these are third-party applications, and so you can also rate it, because if you do that, some church will use this for their crusade, and I mean, it will not serve the purpose for which you wanted to use it.
Right. So let me put this to you. I'm coming to the audience now. Prepare your questions. I'll be taking 3 questions in a row. We'll be taking that of those of you who are on Zoom as well, and then those of you who can put up your comments or your questions in our comment section on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We'll try as much as possible to read them. Doc, I mean, you have an experience with the learning platforms. The problem here, or the challenge here, is how to ensure quality, how you are able to monitor the process of the lecturer and the student, and how you are able to evaluate whether you have had value for money, the person paying the money or the student who has paid the money to be lectured has had value for money, whether there is enough results. How is the quality ensured?
So we have, there's monitoring on the platform. We have people, the technical people, who monitor what goes on. And then we have surveys that are run where students themselves will tell you about their experience, as well as lecturers themselves. So if any lecturer or some lecturers are not giving up their best, students would report it. So we use that to check, and lecturers know it will affect their rating if it comes up. So this is what was used in checking. So there are surveys, even now there are some still running, where you are supposed to give your experience on how you, what you encountered, your challenges, the ups and the downs during the period.
Right, so Carla, let me put the same thing to you. For you, I think, or one key point for me will be parental guidance, how the parents get themselves involved. A lot of parents don't have the time to sit back, monitor their kids and see whether they're actually even learning or not. And even in this piece of COVID, even though they are home or they may be in the house, because they have not been with them or bonded with them in making sure that the academics go well, they may not still sit by them. Once they put up the computer for them, they think they are learning. How did you monitor that?
Well, we ask our students to keep their camera. We, the teachers, can see them, have that face-to-face interaction with them. Also, you are right. There are certain parents who do not have the time, who are also have to still go to work, who are on the front lines managing this crisis. And so they've had to ask others to stand in for them and ensure that the students are in the classroom and following on with the class. So these are 2 ways which we check on the students and make sure that they are progressing with the class.
Right, so thank you very much. You have a point to make on that as well, because the people within your space are supposed to be monitored also.
My point is that the use of technology is fantastic. It's an innovation in the era of COVID. There's no 2 ways about it, but we have to look at the inefficiencies in the use of the technology. Let's look at the tertiary institution. If you have to do your project work, you need a face-to-face encounter with your supervisor. How do you use the technology to address that? Number 2, have we thought of our physically disabled, that section of category of people? If you have problem in hearing or sight, etc., how do you use technology to address that? So we have to study the inefficiencies in the use of technology, so we address it, because now it has come to stay to serve a purpose for certain areas in our country, not all, but certain areas. So we have to match the use of technology against those things.
All right, so Eric, how do you want to say, make a point? Briefly though, because I have to move to our audience now. And please, if you have a question, kindly be in the aisle for me. We'll give you a mic. We'll take 3 questions in a row, and then we can box in. And those on Zoom, we are happy you have joined us. We're happy you are with us. Kindly prepare your questions. We'll be getting to you very soon as well. We are still streaming live on the NYA's page on Facebook. So if you are here, you can still check up how the streaming is, whether your face has been in or not. Please
Sure.
go ahead.
I share in his concern because as I speak to you, we have about 1.7 million students in kindergarten across the country. And we have about, in primary alone, we have about 4.5 million students. What it means is that this conversation that we are having, a lot of concentration or the concern about access and understanding
Exactly.
is with the university students. But at this stage, you ask us, what is happening to this group of students who
From
are
the
at this
kindergarten,
Exactly.
the
And
junior high schools.
I was on a platform where a certain senior officer asked me that I should tell my students that they should be coming up with softwares that will help the industries in Ghana. And I told him that I'm so sorry. Unfortunately, they've been using stones to teach us, and we don't take it. We end up at the queries rather than being able to come up with a software that will help the industries. And so investment is needed in the sector to make us prepared for the world.
That's investment from the government. We have the two deputy chief executive officers of the National Youth Authority here, and I'm sure they're also noting the concerns. Those ones that are bordering on government, they may have to address that in the course of time. We'll be coming to you pretty shortly. Our guest speaker, we have spoken about access, not for only the tertiary students who make a very small percentage of the educational system. We have talked about quality as well. We have talked about the parental guidance for the people, and then the economic empowerment, those who don't have access to electricity and may not be able to follow us even as we do all of this in here. Let me come to our audience. You mentioned your name. If there is any other specific thing you want to mention, whether from an institution or educational setup, yes, you are allowed to do so. And then please put across your question. Thank you.
Hello. Good morning. Please, I'm Frank. Now, I have a concern for Doc and then the NUCS president. The opening remark by, I think the MC said that the CEO for MTN Africa said companies spend a lot to train graduates from West Africa. Now, does it mean that our curriculum is far behind us? Because if what we are studying is not current, then it means we will not be able to match up with whatever is happening now. And which also means that our future is way long ahead of us. That is how come we are facing all these challenges. Because I remember when I was on campus, some of the books we were reading were written in 1998, somewhere in 1995. And if I am 2018, 2017, I'm studying a book that was written in 1995 using cases that was even beyond the year it was authored, then you can see that we are way behind. That's my concern. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Question number 2.
I am Joseph Kobla Wemako. Mr. Efri, you are doing a good job. I just wanted you asked a question in regards to what are views in assuming schools are to reopen officially in September. I think this is a controversial question. You've put it to only one person. Can you put it across and let's see the views on that? Thank you.
Right, so we want the concerns of whether schools should open in September or when. We'll put it to everyone that's seated here. Our student is also here. I'm sure she may be itching to go back to school or probably want to stay home more. We'll ask her when she wants school to reopen. Thank you, Joseph.
All right. Salaam alaikum. I am Ijara Larry Chibara, representing NIMA Excellence Awards, and I am the project lead for Zongo Youth Agenda 2030. Now, concerning the inefficiencies with technology, have we considered partnering with youth-led NGOs to ensure education can be taken to the homes, where we can zone areas and then have small groups of students engaged by teachers? Then also, I seem to be missing the TVET aspect of our education in this conversation. I feel it's one aspect that we should consider because it requires a lot of practicality. So if we are using technology, how do TVET students get to benefit the most out of it? Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's a very, very important question. How we get the practicals done whilst we are making a lot of suggestions of online learning. I'm sure, yes. We would have Doc address that as well. Let's have the final question.
There's a gentleman there.
Hello, my name is Oko Ama, a UNFPA fellow from UNFPA Ghana.
Okay.
And I have one question. So I have heard about the challenges in the basic schools and all of that. Now I want to understand, I want to know what are the practical measures that government in all the districts and municipal assemblies are putting in place to make sure that our younger ones, because basic education, without basic education, you can't even go through the tertiary schools. And in this time, a lot of sisters and brothers are at home. Some of them, like their parents, may not have access to these learning platforms. I have seen people use WhatsApp very innovatively. But some parents do not even have the access to have phones to even access WhatsApp for them to use. And the children are in the house watching Hollywood movies and all of that. I want to have like practical measures or ways that government is engaging the teachers in the district to at least engage these younger people, because if they miss out on education in this time, the country will pay dearly for it in the next few years to come. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So we'll come back to our panel, and our guest speaker, please do stand by for us. I will direct some of the questions to you. So the first one was to Doc and to
China.
start with you.
Gentleman was talking about outdated resources or materials that students have to use. I think those days are long gone. Today, that is what I can speak about, because that is where we have our online library that is set up. We subscribe to so many journals. So, I mean, if you are going to get materials or articles that are old, then it means you are looking at something historical, or you are looking at some theoretical aspect that we need in the past in order to know what has transpired over the years. I know that in the past, we used to have, we all went through it, but now we have online library resources that are available to us. Every student has access. We even have off-campus access. So if you register for the off-campus and you're at home, you have access to the online resources. So I don't think that is still what is taking place today. We have moved past that.
Right, so let me pick, or you can finish with the other ones.
I think there was another question on practicals.
Yes.
Okay, I don't work in the practical domain, but for colleagues who do, like how final year students were taken to school to write, I think, I'm not very certain, but I'm sure it will be done in clusters so that they can go back at specific times to go and do their clinicals and their lab works, because you can't have everybody in the same space at the same time. I can't say that this is what has been written, but from colleagues that I've interacted with, I know these are some of the procedures that are being put in place to deal with that.
And then I'm asked to put to you, should schools reopen in September?
I'll be happy for schools to reopen in September.
Should schools reopen in September?
I mean, I can't say a yes or a no. It calls for discipline and responsibility.
You're a lecturer, you have a say. I mean,
if you ask me,
should be able to tell
my personal opinion, yes. I've always said schools should be open.
Schools should be open. So that's it. Let me come to you. Hi.
Well, concerning the gentleman's concern about having outdated materials in the system, I'm not really sure if that is still the case, because I know of NACA under the Ghana Education Service, which periodically reviews the curriculum, for which reason it informs the content which is provided to the students. If you come to the universities too, you know of the National Accreditation Board and then the National Council for Tertiary Education that certifies the sort of courses and the requirements for those courses. And so periodically there's a review. And of course, maybe if we may have come across the book which was written in 1997, maybe the next thing to do is to check the edition, because periodically they may be old writers, but it is reviewed over time. Now, on the second issue of whether schools should reopen, for me, I don't think that is a yes or no matter. It's a matter of understanding the data which is available as at the time. The major concern that I have around now in our schools is that, yes, governments put in a lot of effort to provide the logistics, but I think our human attitude is also a question here, because we've been to places where we've seen the Veronica buckets and other things, which are just sitting there as white elephants. It is not serving the purpose for which it is put there. We need to ensure that people go and wash their hands. We need to also ensure that people adhere to the protocols. We can do all the spacing. People follow the protocols, it's a problem. And that is where congestion also comes in on our campuses. And so we need to look at ourselves going, I don't think it's so much of the September, because I speak to you, WASSCE is likely to end by the middle of September before PEC starts, final exams. It will take about 2 months to mark WASSCE exams, which will take us to November. What it means is that level 100s might not be ready till somewhere January. That is one question, but of course, there's not only level 100. So what then happens to our level 200s and 300s continuous? We could look at them. I would go for a phased system of reopening so that we don't end up putting everybody together when we don't have answers to the
questions. So you are not for
see.
reopening in September?
Through Accra Technical University, they have the PPEs, but some students are not wearing it.
I've seen some senior high school students. A cluster of them
school, they
walking
are
together
walking, they
without
are
nose
playing.
mask.
So schools can reopen, but then it calls for discipline and responsibility. If we cannot ensure that discipline is maintained, then there will be no reason to ask us to fall into that disaster. But if we can ensure that this is done, then by all means, we should be able to.
So, Carla, let me come to you. In the context of the TVET, obviously you're not in it, but for your field and the people you are with, you still do practicals. Do you do that through the video sessions, or how do you get the practicals done? Do you send instructions to their parents?
Well, when you speak of practicals, for my institution, you're then talking about our science students who are doing biology and chemistry practicals. We haven't
done practicals yet.
As far as I know, yes, because we would require the students to be in the lab following the necessary protocols, dealing with chemicals.
How then does a student get to know a test tube unless on YouTube? They never see it.
I believe COVID is a season and the season will pass. So we can focus on what needs to be taught now, and when it passes, we would then address those necessary things such as the test tube.
So based on that, do you want the students to come back in September? So
I
that
believe
you can show them what
safety first. I would say strongly, it will pass. We will get the herd immunity. We will move on. So let's be as safe as possible till we're ready to open.
When do you want it?
I think I'm going for January.
You're going for January?
Yes, please.
Gloria, you are a student. I'm sure you have an opinion. Do you are staying home, and so you want to stay home till January, or you want us to come back by?
I want to go to school.
You want to go to school? When do you want to go to school?
September.
You want to go to school in September?
Yeah, I've been in the house for so long. Like sometimes, you see, being in school, like itself, makes you feel like, I don't know how to put it, but
That's good. That's good. I mean, for me, ladies and gentlemen, for me, this is key because this is somebody who is within telling us how she's itching to get back to school. And then if you are going to make a policy, whether to bring them back to school or not, and you don't hear from them, or you don't know what they feel or what they want, you may take the decision for people without understanding their needs. So yes, it's very key for me here. And so you want to come back to school in September?
Yeah, because already people are struggling to remember what we've learned in just these few months.
Yes, this is
so going back next year, then everything.
Is that the case? Do you speak to your friends? Do you try to test their capacity and everything?
Yes.
And people are asking.
Sometimes and
you cry. Well, so yes, that's people's how people are thinking and whether we should come back or not? Let me come to you, our guest speaker. We have that's issue of practically engaging the people. We have, well, I think yes, basically that. And then your other comments on the initial discussions we had here.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think, let me first touch on the practical aspect. TVET as it is, most of the things they do have to do with skill demonstrations and everything. So, you know, when we talk of style of learning, they are different. We have people who learn better when they see, we call them visual learners. Others learn better when they hear, we call them auditory learners. And that also learn better when they interact with their peers, we call them social learners. They have those also who learn better when they interact with material, get themselves involved, call them kinesthetic learners. So if you are teaching and you consider some aspect and leave the other, you have to know that you are leaving some people, the way they learn, you are leaving them out. And when it comes to practical activity, this is where the learner would have to have physical interaction with the materials. If you talk about science, for instance, osmosis, you have to cut pieces of yam, dig through, put sugar in it, or whatever, and then they have to do it. But there is online, there's something that sometimes could be now called tutorials. That's what he mentioned, YouTube. The teacher, if we understand actually what is to be done, there are some of them that we call practical that really could be done online, and others need to be done physically. So for instance, I want to demonstrate, demonstrate something like diffusion, right? I can introduce you to the materials, and then if you also have them, the unfortunate thing is that the learner is not going to have access to the material because you have the test tubes in the lab that you are using to demonstrate, and he's only watching it on the video, but he can have access to the test tube. Even the phone, he's not having it, let alone the test tube.
Exactly.
So that becomes an issue. So when it comes to practical learning, there are some aspects that I think we can use video to teach, talking about the components of multimedia. We can use video to teach those things. My small boy said, Daddy, I'm going to learn how to cook vegetable rice. I said, come and watch this one on the YouTube. He watched it and prepared the vegetable rice. So it means that practically he did not have physical interaction with me being there teaching or the person teaching, but on the video he was able to look at it and do it. But there are chemicals and the metals that comes to those things. I think we have to reserve them, like our staff said, reserve those ones there, and then deal with those that we could use videos to teach. And then later when we come back, we can focus on those ones too, so that we have more time to deal with. The other one that I will respond to is how, I think there was a discussion on the teachers and the learners themselves online, able to understand that kind of. I think VCG, the Vice Chancellor's Ghana, came out with a suggestion that subsequently, and that is for the tertiary institutions, subsequent admissions, they are suggesting that we add in the admission letter online and face-to-face, which means that it's going to be hybrid. And there's something now we call 30/70. So if you want to use the 30/70, it means that you may have to use, let's say, dependent. If you have a course that is general for a whole group, then for those people, that course, they may have to do it online, while the departmental courses are done face-to-face.
Right.
So that's also a way of using this. But our understanding of online itself is the problem, because people see the online as something new, but it's nothing new. Once you have your phone, you can send text message to someone, receive a picture, watch a video. Same communication that goes online.
All right.
I hope you understand.
Exactly.
So my advice to us is that don't see the online as something so unique that
out of the moon.
Yes, it's what we do on our WhatsApp or Facebook is the same thing that goes on there. Because if you get admission, you go to the school and you have to go to an office to get information, go to notice board to read. Then all these things have been put on the website. To go to an office, just pick a line or contact number on the website and call. It means that you have attended an office. Now go and read information from the website. It means that you are reading from the notice board. And I think that when you are supposed to write examination, the examination we wrote quite recently, some students, you enter, let's say the duration is 1 hour, but the paper itself is 30 minutes. So it means that once you enter, you have 30 minutes, it will log you out. Then some people will come 15 minutes to the 1 hour. It means that certainly you have 15 minutes to finish. It will log you out. But then I entered and it logged me out. We have not understood. And I think that we have to educate the kind of information we have to give to our learners and even our tutors.
Right.
I think hasn't gone down very well.
All right, so thank you very much. Round of questions. And do I have those on Zoom who are ready to put up their questions? The IT team would help us. It's only fair that at least I take 2 or 3 from them, then I come back to the auditorium here. So if we have anybody on Zoom who is ready, I can see them on my screen here. Can we see them on the bigger screens, please? Whilst we prepare for them.
Yes, hello?
From the Head of State Awards. Very good conversation. Well done, panelists. And I would want to reiterate that I kind of feel that some aspect of education has been left from the conversation. I'm happy about my earlier on friend who spoke about the TVET, but we all believe that education goes beyond the walls of the classroom. And for all of us, some of the beautiful life experiences, that we can always remember, didn't happen within the classroom, but out of the classroom, when we are in the market, when we are in the house and all that. And that brings to mind the speaker's point that education is not just the acquisition of knowledge, but it must be able to be entrenched on values that would impact on society. We would all agree that during the COVID-19, when schools were closed, our young people had always have a lot of time on their hands. So out of classroom, there are free leisure hours. What do they use it for? We all know that it has a very strong impact on them, especially in terms of their thinking and even their attributes in the classroom. And that brings to the mind non-formal education. Many a times when we talk about non-formal education, we only focus on the vocational, TVET, practical aspect. But going to the market is non-formal education. Working on the street is non-formal education because we pick lessons and we learn from, and it all, support our artwork. Like one of the panels said, COVID-19 is just a phase and it would pass by. But going forward as a country, how can we use non-formal education as a tool to entrench education, enhance education, so that the moral fiber of our country can always be improved? Thank you.
Thank you very much. A very important one there.
Okay. I'm called Sammy from Tema Metro. My question goes to the e-learning issues. If we look at digital marketing, it has shown that about 80% of people can relate better with what they see. And then 20% of people can reflect what they hear. So in regards to this COVID-19, where students have to engage on e-learning and other stuff to be able to make their educational activities go online, fine. But here is the case now, double track was an issue before COVID-19. So let's assume that we reopen school in September. How is government going to manage these huge numbers coming together when we don't even have the infrastructure to accommodate all of them? Thank you.
All right. Okay, so we have someone on Zoom. Thank you very much. Please kindly mention your name, where you are speaking from. If you have a district precisely, let's hear you. And then your question. You probably have to put your audio on. From what I see, we cannot hear you.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Right, yes, sir, we can hear you. Thank you very much.
My name is Kwesi Sapon, and I represent an organization, youth-led organization.
Hello? Kwesi Sapon, we still have problems hearing you, so we would kindly reconnect with you and then get to hear your question. But thank you very much. We appreciate you.
Hello?
For being with us. Yes, Kwesi, we can hear you now. Kindly go ahead with your question.
My question is that, is there any data and right protection framework in place to safeguard the right of young people and children as there's increase of digital presence within the educational platform? We're talking about the fact that there are more young people undertaking various online activity. Do we have right protection and data protections for them framework in place? Because it's important to safeguard them. The second part of my question is that I would like to know, is there any collaboration between young people, organizations, and the grassroots to be able to leverage on their presence to help make sure that all young people, particularly young people with visual impairment, as you may know, the majority of them who are out of school and are not doing anything. And most of our materials, educational materials, most of them are not translated into Braille. I can tell you, I'm aware that at the special educational unit, they've been able to translate only the core subject for the final year student in the junior high school. What about the many of them who are at home do not have access and in communities in these things? One of the ways I suggest is that the National Youth Authority have the mandate. They should collaborate with young people, organizations who might have the capacity to play that role. The youth engagement as part of the International Youth Day provides that there are more young people who are doing things on their own. And from our engagement through the Civic Care Project, we've seen that there are more young people who are willing to share and bring their expertise to solve it. But the space to do so usually is not there. Thank you very much.
I'm grateful for your questions. Very, very, very important ones. What you should note is that we will get in touch with you, the NYA, as you make suggestion. I am very hopeful that you have some line of or some kind of technology you have started already to be able to help us with this from your very suggestions. So yes, we'll get in touch with you, and please keep being with us. We'll have Doc and our guest speaker and everybody else answer your very first two questions, and we can box on. So thank you very much. That was Kwesi Sapon. We have another person online. Can we take him, please? What's your name? Where are you speaking from?
Good afternoon. My name is Emma, National Youth Authority, Ashanti Region. My question has to do with suggestion. I realized that at the beginning of the COVID season, GES put in place some measures to educate students, especially through television and then online means. But I think that there was little consideration for those people who may not have access to the internet. Quite a number of them, especially those who don't have TV at home. They were quite limited in participating in the programs and the measures that were put in place by GS. So can we have some kind of a visual representation of the educational materials that were being displayed on TV and then through the internet, so that when they are being distributed around, even though they are not able to participate in the television education like the GBC had a channel for them, if we can have some of these things that can be distributed to them, to students who are in rural areas, so that at least they are able to use them to also get themselves abreast of the issues that are happening. If we don't consider those people who are in rural areas, definitely we are communicating to them that you are more privileged when you are in the city. And so indirectly, we are telling them that they should come to the city. So I'm just want to draw attention to the fact that usually at the national level, when some of these things are being put in place, we need to consider people who are also in hard to reach areas so that they may not feel like it's a kind of a disadvantage living in such areas. Thank you.
Thank you very much. To make sure that there is equitable distribution of resources and that we are sharing everywhere in all parts of the country. I'll take the final one from Zoom, and then I can come back into the auditorium. So, sir, thank you very much. We can see you. If you can hear us, kindly put forward your name, where you are speaking from, and then your question.
Thank you very much. My name is Ahmed Rufai Adams, NY Ashanti region. My question goes to the guest speaker. He made it quite obvious that he is an instructor or a lecturer at a university. So my question is very straightforward. We know that the university or contemporary university education does not take or does not tolerate segregational education. And so I want to believe that whether online or whatever mode that they are using, they will actually practice inclusive education. But in terms of all the online arrangements that have been made that I've seen so far, none of them takes into consideration the special needs of students with severe visual and auditory impairment. So what steps are being taken to make sure that online inclusive education is achieved? And if there is a step or a particular steps that his university is taking its place, is he willing to share it so that other universities that might have the privilege of listening also take it into account? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ahmed Rufai. That was a these questions particularly. I am tempted to take answers before I come back to the auditorium. But yes, we have a lady here. Let me take the lady and add to the questions we have. Then we can come back to the auditorium. We can come back for answers.
UNFPA. So my question is to the guest speaker. You emphasized on the fact that the youth can help bring down drastic measures to fight against this pandemic, and you need our practical knowledge on that. Now, my question is, what are some of the technological advancements made available to help them execute their work? And secondly, will there be continuous support and provisions made to the youth after the execution of their plan to help, or it ends when the pandemic is over?
Right, I guess I'm taking note of the question. Let me come back to the panel for answers. Kindly join me, please. So I have four more people to ask the questions, but let me come for answers. I'll come back to you pretty shortly, and then we can box on. So I have questions from Peter, who is the head of States Awards, or who went to the head of States Awards. So he talks about non-formal education and how that can be pushed forward. Can I take that from you, our guest speaker, and then I'll come to Dr. Nat?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Moderator. Yeah, for non-formal education, it's key because before the formal education was non-formal education. And it's very important because education, I always say, should not end in the classroom. Well, if it ends in the classroom, if a child goes to the classroom, he's taught that brush your teeth twice a day. He goes home and the mother and the father are brushing their teeth once a day. Then the child begins to think, what's happening? Even the parent can say that, hey, you are wasting the toothpaste. Yes, you are wasting it. So the child also reverts back to brushing the teeth once a day. It means that education should be extended to the home. So we think that is in the right direction. And we have to do everything possible to include that in whatever design that we have for future education.
There's another question on data protection framework. For all of these discussions that we are having, can you speak to that as well?
Yeah, I don't know what the Youth Authority have in place though, But if it has to do with the nation, I will not be able to answer that question now.
Exactly.
But what I know is that there's something that we have overlooked. When you go to buy a device to use, and you don't know how to use the device, you ask for a manual. And the manual is the device to guide you. Now, when social media came and these online things came, it didn't come with a manual. And that's how come we are abusing certain things. So I think this is something that we have to consider if we are not doing it in terms of the database. We have to consider so that we get some security for our learners online, because it's online, everybody is accessing, everybody is seeing you. So we have to ensure that people are safe when they go online to do whatever. I think that's also very important.
And finally, because when I come back, I may not be able to come to you again. Inclusive education. Ahmed Rufai asked about that, and then he puts the question to you directly.
Yeah, inclusive education is also very important. In my institution, we have special education department. So it means that we practice inclusive education in our institution. When you go online, especially to some of our pages, University of Education, Winneba, some of these tutorials that we put there, we have interpreting it so that they also access. The unfortunate thing is that if you are someone who has, or someone who is visually impaired, is not going to see the video. So how will the person understand what you are talking about? Mm-hmm. But then the audio is there, we'll listen to the audio, and if the person is also hearing impaired, then he's going to watch the sign that associates with the video and will be able to understand what is going on. So I think that it's something that we have to add to almost all the materials that we produce so that they also not be left out.
All right, let me come to you, Doc, because of your distance learning. Have you had any data protection acts already? Do you subscribe to it at the University of Ghana? Are people who are using the platform protected?
I can't say outright that I know that that protection is there, but I know that UJ subscribe to the data protection policy, but I cannot say point blank that I know it is being applied to the platform. I'll have to check first before giving that information. I don't know that for sure. But when it comes to inclusive education, I mean, talking about our colleagues, our friends who are visually impaired and we have a unit that deals with students who have those challenges. What I know in the past is that they have their, for those who are visually impaired, they transcribe their materials for them in a way they can read the Braille, so they can read and all that. But I don't know during this COVID time, what is being done in the department. All the departments are working. So the most I can say is I can check with them as to what is being done in that department. Since I am not in that department, I can't say it outright.
Hala, in your school, are you making provisions for inclusive education if you are not doing it already?
Students, we do not have special needs students who would thus require us to make that provision. But speaking to the data protection, the software that we use does mitigate interference from intruders. So we do know that our students are protected from any outsiders.
Well, let me pick same point from you as well, Eric, on the two very important issues that have been raised.
Yes. I think the first one is about
the data protection and then the inclusive education.
All right. I think at the pre-tertiary level, we are dealing with television and radio. So we don't have much problem with those data stuff. But with inclusive education, there's a challenge. I think when you listen to the questions that have come, it means that we must pay attention.
Exactly.
I believe that there should be a deliberate government policy to address inclusiveness in the era of COVID against the technologies that we are talking about. It's very important. There should be a deliberate government policy to address the issue of inclusiveness in that space.
So, Gloria, we are talking about people who are, for example, visually impaired, who cannot see, who may not be able to use the phone as you will. Do you have people like that in your school, and have you been able to see or know how they are also coming together in this period of COVID?
Well, not in my school per se, but my brother works at Ikropon School for the Blind. He's
Right.
a teacher. So mostly when they have issues, they use these normal keypad phones because they can't use the touch. So they call him and he teaches them via. Sometimes he calls them because he knows it's difficult to buy airtime, especially knowing that they are not earning anything as at now. Yeah.
Right, so that's for those who cannot see.
Yes.
Well, let me come to you, Hyde. You are supposed to be speaking for students. You cannot be speaking for the people who can see only and can go online only. People are talking about government's intervention. You should be pushing for that.
Sure.
What have you done in this direction? First of all, data protection. Secondly, inclusive education.
In the aspect of data protection, somewhere last year, I'm aware of the efforts by the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection in partnership with the Media Foundation for West Africa and UNICEF had done some engagement in order to formally put before Parliament a legislation for data protection. And now more than ever, with social media becoming part of our lives, it is necessary. So that for that aspect, I know something is being done. Of course, when COVID came into being, we've had several interactions with the Ministry of Education. I know that there were some conversion of the bills for the School of the Blind and others. But I'm also of the view that whatever is being done, a lot more can be done. I know of Harvard and some of our students in Oxford, some of the University of Ghana students who have moved on to Oxford, about 3 blind students. And there's ready access for them. At any point in time, your audio works are available. You can call on to somebody and you have any necessary information that we have. As much as we are doing conversion, which is more or less independent to them, there's also the need for us to create avenues where they can have direct access of intervention. So whatever the challenge is, whatever the information you need, you can call and have that sort of support. So there's a lot more we can do.
All right, thank you very much. I'm sure I can now take my final round of questions, after which we'll be finally listening to our Deputy Chief Executives. Right, he wants to make a point on TVET. Please box on.
I think that importantly, an issue was raised about informal education and family values. And I want to make this quick intervention because of the recent issues which happened in our senior high schools. And once again, I apologize on behalf of my colleague students to the president and any other person who was affected by the unfortunate incidents. The National Union of Ghana Students is very much against such acts of indiscipline. But we can't also discount the fact that children are a reflection of society. Whatever attitude that our children put out there is what they have learned from the elderly ones. And so when we have our elderly ones mounting radio stations, media platforms, and throwing all sorts of shades and insults to our elderly ones, obviously we cannot discount the fact that some of our children are going to learn this. And so therefore, we must also understand that in order to raise up a child, it does not only end in the classroom. We have been taught what are agents of socialization. The church is part of it. The community that we grow in, our elderly ones, our family and everybody must come together to ensure that we get a requisite output that we want our children to become. And so please, we are children today, we may be adults tomorrow, and there's a certain responsibility on our part to ensure that we do not only leave responsibility of training our children in the schools, because when the children go to school, we don't know who they mingle with. Peer pressure and everything comes to bear. So I also plead with you that our children are a reflection of our society. So let's be mindful of the attitude that we put out there, because that is what our colleagues in the senior high schools and the basic school learn. And therefore, we can be guaranteed of a better future for our children. Thank you.
And so especially for those of you who sit on radio, who get the opportunity to be in the space of the media, the politicians, social commentators, and all of you, I mean, I think this is for you. I can now take my final round of questions.
Joshua Pei is my name, General Secretary for the University Students Association of Ghana, and a scholar at the John A. Kufuor Foundation. That's the Kufuor Scholars Program.
Nice one.
Basically, I would want to touch on the tertiary education aspect. Looking at the interaction so far, you realize that most of the tertiary institutions actually adopted the e-learning system. For example, my institution, KNUST, we adopted the e-learning system, but I realized that the inefficiencies had to force the school to put in place some kind of measures. and the school fell on the IDL centers as she described. But they realized that these same IDL centers, which were supposed to be for manual purposes, like people who didn't have access to the internet to make use of them, these IDL centers were in city centers. So the same people who would get the internet are the same people who would still be benefiting from the manual process. So you take away that person at Dokochewa who also has benefited to be part in KNUST. And so you realize that all these people would be cut off. But just as I saw a joke online that no matter how deprived your community is, ballot papers always get there. Yes, and you realize that these deprived communities, we have to make sure that just as the manual processes was being adopted by KNUST, these institutions, students of these institutions also get these kind of things through maybe circuit supervisors. We can adopt those kind of strategies being used by the genius in decentralization. And also the basic aspects. When you look at the TV learning and radio learning, they are all very good. They are advertising, etc. But then you realize that there are no proper time schedules. The time schedules are online. Most parents don't even go online. But can we have hard copies of the time schedules sent to every single home that we have a student there? I think that can be proper, and we'll make sure that the students follow whatever that's being learned. Thank you very much.
So we should include manual distribution to the e-learning.
Yes, sir.
Right. Thank you very much. Point well noted. Question number 2.
Thank you very much. My name is Mark Lusiakum, an aspirant organizer, an youth organizer of PNC. My brother Adams, before the speaker came, made mention of, really said that industry players are complaining, not necessarily coming out with a report, but their complaint has to do with the skill that many of the newly employed people do not have. And so they are not ready to invest more because they've been doing that for a very longer period of time. Now, the speaker made mention of the youth carrying the developmental agenda of Ghana on our shoulders, which is very true. But my question is, we have technology right before us. How do we make technology very, very much utilized when we fail to invest in skills and training? I don't know if you get me. How are we able to make good use of technology when we fail to invest in skills and training? That is my question.
Thank you very much. So when we get to the rounds of the CEOs, please, this will be for you. Investment in skills, right?
Okay, my name is Nkutme Bright. I'm representing Human Rights Reporters.
Can you project a bit, please, so we can hear you enough?
My name is. No. Excuse me to use this.
No problem.
My name is Nkutme Bright. I'm representing Human Rights Reporters Ghana. I think my first 2 things has to do with suggestions. I know the National Association for Curriculum Assessment may or may not be here, but they are listening to us elsewhere. I attended a school that is in a village where we actually, every Thursday, they mention something like project work. When you hear of project work, it simply means that come to the farm, the teacher's farm, to farm. I know some of the basic schools in the cities are not experiencing this, but then this is what is happening in the villages. As we are talking about creativity and innovations, I want to suggest to NACA that they can in a way review that curriculum to set in practicals in the basic educations so that instead of students going to farm, we can have that opportunity to have practicals that will train us to be creative people in future. Now, my second response is going to the general question as to whether students will come back to school or not. Now, if you ask me, I will say yes. In September, we expect that students will come back to school. And this is my reason. When we want to depend on only the scientific data that is available for our decision making, it may be misleading. Why? Because if you look at in the transport sector or in any other business sector, we have been allowed to operate to full capacity. Now, a student who is at home, not going to school because of COVID-19, do movements and other transactions. He enters into the trust row and then no other protocol is observed. We are operating to full capacity. So if that is happening there, then we should allow it also to continue in the other institutions, like the academic institutions. Let them come back, just that we have to intensify the protocols everywhere.
The students being able to board trotro or taxi is your justification for the reopening in September, if I am right, sir.
No, not. I'm really saying that when they are in school or not in school, the potentials of getting the virus, if one does not keep himself well, is still high. Because in the transport sector, we are operating full capacity in any other sector at all. So once you're a student and you're home, you still interact or do some of these things. So it's the same way we can come to school, then we practice the protocols well to save ourselves. Yes, that is what I have to say. And also, on the e-learning, the final question.
30 seconds, sir.
Yes, on the e-learning, I know most of the institutions are running on the e-learning system. However, I realize that in some of the institutions, you are able to learn the theoretical aspect. However, the practicals is being regulated because of how the mode is. Now, is conducting exams on the e-learning platform the overall way to go? Because in the exams conducting, practical questions are left out. Is it very objective, or will it help us to conduct exams on the e-learning platforms?
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So let me have the final question from people here in this auditorium.
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Ezuke Nomani. The guest speaker spoke very well, touching on the fact that we can't bring someone elsewhere to come and tell us how education system should run. That's very true. And I'm saying this because when we look at the recent happening where students were insulting the president and staff, I think the best thing we should be doing right now for the youth is to redefine the human rights we institute in this country. Yes, we can't bring someone elsewhere to tell us how to run our educational system, since you apply to the human right. All of us sitting down in this auditorium, one way or the other, have been caned in school before. We all receive canes. Why should we take it off? My main problem is we brought this human right on board without taking our cultural values, without taking the culture of our system into consideration before implementing it. I would plead with the panel to look into this as a policy to actually work on it for the youth. Secondly, concerning your education, we were all talking about education without touching on job. We spoke so well about education without speaking on job. You finish school, you come out, they will tell you they need 5 years experience. You know, the youths who are the forefront, the fighters of the country, why are they going to get the 5 years experience? What I wanted to say is, yes, we know the youths, we have to stand the test of time now. How do we stand it? I think our syllabus have to be restructured in a way that entrepreneurship should be made compulsory, like English, mathematics, and science, as it is. And also, innovation and creativity in education should come with critical thinking, that the students should be put in a position where you'll be put to test to be able to think outside the box with some issues and come out with solutions, and then give a positive analysis on those issues. If that is done from the GSS, from the senior high level to at least the university level, I think most of us will be coming out thinking of our own jobs, not relying on the president. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So you insist on critical thinking and the provision of skills and jobs. Right, that's the point is well noted. I said I was going to end the questioning, but let me take this very last one. I still have to keep within the time.
Okay, so my name is Ato Edwin from International Youth Fellowship. And I think what we want to look at is not only looking within ourselves as in Ghana. Why I say this is because this COVID whole thing and the means of the internet provides us with an opportunity. an opportunity without visa, an opportunity without airlines to be able to connect to students all over the world. And so sometimes when you try to solve problems within yourselves, there are challenges, but when you see what others are doing elsewhere, there could be great opportunities. So International Youth Fellowship, for example, have been doing this youth camps, all right? And then because of the COVID now, everything was done online. Now before, we're only thinking Ghana. But this time around, when we did the camp, we thought about connecting youth from all over the world. And I'm very happy because the Jihad, who is the next president, was even on board as well. So as we connected, before we were thinking just gathering like 2,000 students at Legon when we used to do it. But this time, we're able to connect thousands of youth, over 100,000 of youth from other countries as well. And, you know, the students who connected, they were so much happy listening from the experiences of other colleagues on from other parts of the world. So if we look at the opportunities, it will give us strength to be able to overcome all things as well. So we're suggesting that let's not only look within Ghana, let's not
look elsewhere.
Yes, but
elsewhere
look
in
elsewhere
Africa and
as
elsewhere
well.
on the
And then
continent.
the connection will bring great hope onto us. Yeah.
All right, so thank you very much. And I was rounding up. I think most of the suggestions or the points in this final round of questions have been suggestions and commentaries. We only have just about 2 points to address. Let me read some questions from those who have joined us on Zoom and those who are following us on Facebook. I'll read all. Most of these are also repetitions of some of the points that have been made here already. So I'll still stick to the 2 points, which I have to ask Dr. Kala and our guest speaker, but let me still read this. This is from Ernest Atabuatin. He says, my question is, the advanced countries, they spend a lot on technical and vocational education. Is their major priority. I'm sure you know, right? That is why they are well developed. They start training their children from the beginning of their schooling. And by the time they reach the high school or university, they already have the area of specialization. Thank you very much, Ernest Atabuatin, for that comment. Akwesi Sapon says, what are opportunities with offline initiatives such as pre-recorded lessons and ebooks to all youth persons in the educational sector? What collaboration exists between NYA and youth-led organizations in communities in addressing challenges posed by COVID-19? So this will go to our 2 deputy chief executives, but one of these collaborations is a platform which has been created now, and this was done with the support of almost all the youth-led organizations here in Ghana. NYA Central Region, to everyone. I am Gloria, Central Region. Okay, no, this is Gloria, not NYA. Please, I want to find out from the school authorities and the GES if they will allow students to use smartphones when school resumes. So the school authorities here, will you allow students to use smartphones as you are beckoning on them to use now when schools resume? And then, thank you, okay, this is a comment from someone in the northern region. It's duly acknowledged. It's duly acknowledged. So thank you very much. Let me begin from Kala with that. Somebody spoke about the skills gap, and it is a point most people have raised. For people who are transitioning from, for example, the senior high school, some may not even get into the tertiary. They go straight to the work environment. The skills they learn from school, how are they able to apply it? Are you doing that? And within this COVID space, how are you getting that in place? And then you can add up the question, the final question that came, whether you would allow your students to use smartphones.
The skills students are learning in school are to be applied to a wide variety of fields. When you look at the core subjects like English, math, they teach basic practical skills needed for life. Now, as teachers, we do our best to make sure that the students learn what they need to progress to the university level and be successful in the workplace. Part of that is definitely discipline, to be able to think critically through tasks and apply themselves. So even online, we are still giving assignments, and assignments are one of the ways which we check to see how well the students have acquired the skill we were trying to teach them. And through continuous assessment, assignments, and definitely we have not been able to put in the practical project works during this period, which we usually would have in place to ensure that they'll be able to tackle practical tasks. But that is the goal and that is the aim. With that being an existing gap, it speaks to the quality of education that the students are receiving at the different institutions which they attend. And it is then put upon us, the teachers, the administration, to make sure that we can tackle any shortfalls that the students may face. And that's a continuous process, because you get different students every year with different challenges. And you, the teacher, and the administration must adjust to meet those needs. With the question—
Smartphones.
Yes, smartphones. It would be wonderful if we can continue using some of these technological devices within the school setting, because typing, IT, this is the next level. We are graduating
In
from
your school,
paper and pen.
Faith Montessori, will you allow the students to use smartphones?
Smartphones, we use laptops, but not.
Would you allow them to use smartphones?
I doubt it.
You doubt. You won't allow them to use smartphones, even though you are asking them to use it now as they're in the houses.
Well, we are asking them to use certain applications which can be accessed with the smartphones. If we are providing a device that can be more securely monitored, but still to get the effect of that learning, then we would rather that.
Doctor, for University of Ghana, you can't even control them and tell them not to use smartphones. Not at all.
And students already have smartphones. It's just that you will not use it in the lecture hall. You need to listen. Unless you have been given slides prior to the class and you are referring to it. So students have opportunity to use their smartphones in school, but at the right time and for the—
I know, yes, there is a business school. You have the entrepreneurship as a course now, teaching people in all that and making sure. But how are you making sure that you close a gap? This is a question from someone. The gap between your university and industry. Yesterday, we spoke a lot about internship and all that.
Okay. So when it comes to internship and being prepared for the work arena after school, now the Careers and Counseling Center does a lot when it comes every semester. If I'm not mistaken, there's a career fair. And then they take students also through preparing our CVs, how to conduct ourselves during
Job
interviews. Exactly. And for, I think, several institutions take students on after their final year. Some of them even do the internship during the long vacation period. So I think a lot depends on us when we are students to make use of the opportunities that are available to us.
Right, Eric, on the smartphones, would you allow them? Would you tell the heads of institutions to allow the people
in a
to use
pre-tertiary institution, it is sacrilegious to use smartphones.
You want them to use it now,
Teachers,
but when they have to come back to school, it's sacrilegious.
Because now we know what the children can do with the phone, and you are aware.
But they can still do the same as they are in the house.
It will take a lot of education before we can get to that era where we can use. But for now, it is dangerous to allow children to use. Rather, we are encouraging the new standards-based curriculum is encouraging teachers and facilitators to use the smartphones to access items or information so that they can address the concerns of the learners. So that is what we're doing. But to allow the children themselves to carry the smartphone, for now, it is dangerous. Yes, unless we do a lot of education. We know what happens on the social media. We are all aware what the children—
What happens on social media?
We are all aware. You see SHS students, girls, doing a lot of things, and it's amazing. We know, we have been watching.
Gloria, what happens on social media?
One thing that's we've all forgotten about is cybersecurity. There's nothing wrong with using phones, but cybersecurity is like, it's major because you have to monitor whatever your child is doing on the phone. Once in a while, you take your child's phone, go through the history. Look at what the child has done. Look at the sites the child has visited before.
So I watched this video online where there is a child sitting by a computer watching a video which he is not supposed to watch. The father tries to monitor him, and then he is able to outwit the father every time the father comes around, because he's able to click, minimize, and he knows the keys to close it even when it is minimized on the taskbar. The father doesn't know that. So he minimizes it, the father comes to the computer, and then he puts it off. Father goes, he brings it back, watches, he comes back, he minimizes it. Father comes back to sit on the computer, and he uses the keys to close that application on the taskbar. How are you able to overcome this?
But
right, go on.
One thing is, as a parent, at least you should have some experience with something before you allow your child to also endeavor into it.
So if I'm a farmer, I can't allow my child to use it. Right, please go on.
If you have some experience with it, then you know, like, at least some, like, the major stuff, the ones that are like pressing, you should know at least how to check history, how to monitor your child, and you should also talk to them. You should talk to them because you should be a parent that is ready to listen. If you're not ready to listen, then your children will hide things from you. Yeah.
Hide.
Thank you. For me, as to whether children should use smartphones in school or not, I believe that with every action, there's a price to pay. Asking your child to use smartphone without supervision is like asking the child to go out and play without being interested in who your child associates with. Yes, there are concerns as to children being smart and all, but there are equally softwares that you can use that prevents the child from accessing certain sites, and also you can also track the various platforms that your child has accessed. We need it, but I mean, for me, it must come with some constant supervision and monitoring from the parent. Otherwise, the devices that the child will be exposed to might have lasting consequences.
Right, thank you very much. Our time is actually up, but kindly indulge me for the next 7 or 8 minutes. Let me give them 30 seconds each to say their final words or round it up, and then we'll allow our guest speaker maybe 1 or 2 minutes to also round it up. Then our deputy CEOs will speak, and then we can go for our snack break and or lunch break and come back later for the second session. So let me begin with you, Kala, 30 seconds.
So it's amazing to be here at this platform to see what the youth can do during this time period of COVID-19. It is important that in as much as the teachers and the administration are trying to provide a high quality standard of education still for our students, parents, the general public, society continues to play a guiding role in the students' life and encourage them to continue pursuing their education instead of taking a vacation. Yes, that's
right, Doc, 30 seconds.
Okay, I'll say that we should all understand that in difficult circumstances like we find ourselves with COVID, we definitely have to innovate in order to progress and then make good of all that we want to do. But in doing so, we shouldn't forget that as we as institutions put in mechanisms for students, we know that students will also have their challenges. We shouldn't forget the challenges. So our support systems must work in order that students' mental health, students' access to information is readily available so that we can support each other in surviving this episode.
Thank you very much, Doc. Eric, 30 seconds.
13 million students are staying at home now without teaching and learning, without academic exercise. We believe that the time to come back is now. We believe that government has done enough providing PPEs, sensitizing educational workers and teachers on the necessary protocols, you understand? So there's a need for students to come back. The private schools have been deeply affected. Educational workers at the private sector have been rendered jobless. It is time for them to come. It has a ripple effect on households. So there's time. This is the time for them to come back, and then we continue our normal educational system whilst observing all the protocols.
Okay, Gloria, what would you want to say to us?
I like to plead the government, even as at now in senior high school,
Munyaho.
Here said, I want to go back to school. It's not the same. We know it is not the same, but we can make the best out of that. I mean, many students in Ghana here are doing distance education abroad. They are acquiring higher levels of education, but they've never stepped in the classroom. It is doable, and so we need to explore that. Right. And that is what I would say. But I think we need to begin to identify the various opportunities in the system and how those with the necessary know-hows will begin to plug the holes and find lasting, adaptable ways that our students and teachers can also help us to continue with our education.
Right.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, please do acknowledge the Deputy CEO in charge of programs and operations, the National Youth Authority. So for all of us, as he said, there is a kind of a consensus that the COVID has come to stay. What we need to do is some of the suggestions that have come from most of us here in the auditorium, our panelists, and those online, those on Zoom, and those who are following us on Facebook as well, the mindsets that have been put together. We have stated that at the end of today, which is the second, a communique is going to come out. So all the suggestions, contributions, questions that are driving the discussion that came up from you are going to be put together in a document, which is to show us the way forward, how to resolve or solve challenges, particularly for the youth in the field of education during this COVID pandemic. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the privilege to introduce to you the Chief Executive Officer of the National Youth Authority. He's also a parliamentary candidate for the Botiano Englishi Amanfro constituency. We are hoping that he becomes a member of parliament for the constituency by the 7th of December, 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, he just joined us, but he will give us the parting words. Kindly help me welcome the CEO of the National Youth Authority, Mr. Sylvester Mensah.
Thank you very much. My name is Sylvester Tete. Yes. I don't know whether because I contested UT Mensah, it's always been Sylvester Mensah. But my name is Sylvester Tete. And thank you very much, my Deputy in charge of Finance and Administration, and Mr. Uswansa, that of Operations and Programs. And let me also thank panelists who are here with us, taking us through this particular session, and everybody participating in this all important dialogue session. I think that you will agree with me that this is the first of its kind, and it's been eye-opening for most of our participants here today, including myself. I had to undertake another official assignment somewhere, and that is why I had to come in late. But I trust the competent hands that have been empaneled today to do justice to whatever is going on. I know that, like you said, everything that is going on here, there will be a communique at the end of the entire program, and then the recordings of this program will be available for other people to have access to it. I must thank the participant as well for taking time of their busy schedules and actively participating in the discussion so far. I think that whatever has been discussed here is what is bothering the young people of our country. And I'm happy to say that most of the things that are being discussed here has, if you go through the new or reviewed National Youth Policy, these are concerns shared by young people. And I think that it will go a long way to inform policy. Just as we said, everybody seems to have a fair idea of the way we should go. What is left is the advocacy. And I want to entreat all of you that in as much as we are calling for TVET to be at the center of our development, those of us who are not in that field and know that is important and is critical for our development, let us continue to advocate for that. One of the things that I say that should drive this whole change is the mindset education. We need to have a mindset change about the way we view things. We all know when we were going to secondary schools, if you had your friend from JHS going to technical school, mostly they became a laughing stock. Because you didn't pass well, that's why you were going there. And it has gone on and on and on. I believe that on hindsight, nobody who had taken that part today will laugh at somebody going through TVET. We'll rather encourage them, and some I know are even encouraging their children to take particular interest in this. Government has done so well coming up with a new curriculum and a new council for technical and vocational education. What is left is a mindset of the citizens to play a complementary role to ensure that government's agenda in that field succeeds. I also want to say that our attitude as Ghanaians, I think that has been discussed on many, many other platforms, especially young people. What has been the challenge is the career progression for people taking TVET. But today, new curriculum and then the council is coming out to say that you can even become a professor without not going through the formal degree. But your skills can even earn you the title a professor. So it doesn't matter which path you choose. But we reckon that that is a part of which we can develop this country. Let me also say that the National Youth Authority, the platform that is being created today, we are regulators for that matter, or creating a platform. You can see that all the discussions are coming from various backgrounds with requisite knowledge in youth work. I want to put this information out. The National Youth Authority is not there to do everything for young people in this country, but to facilitate development, to facilitate discussions on youth issues. The youth policy of our country cannot be implemented by the National Youth Authority, but to point out the highlights, all other department agencies of government, and even the private sector and youth groups, our responsibilities, our obligations to the young people of our country, I believe that we fairly discharge our responsibilities to that extent. COVID-19, we cannot, the memories of COVID-19 will live with us for a very long time to come, and it will even help us to prepare for future unforeseen challenges like this. I know very soon the world will overcome COVID-19, but the memories or the lessons of it should not be lost on us. We should be prepared. That innovation should drive whatever we do. Innovation, technology, but the question is, most of our people are cut out the technology arena, especially those in the countryside. We should be looking at how innovation can impact positively in their lives as well. So a few words this afternoon is to thank all of you. Whatever you've said here, it's an appropriate context. That need to have this information, we duly have them. The program is running live on our Facebook pages, and the authority will have in possession of all materials and information readily available for assessment by the young people of our country. I want to thank you, and I believe that what we've experienced in the last 3 days will impact positively in the lives of even those who are not here, but will have a privilege of accessing the information later on. I thank you so much for your attention. May God bless all of us.
The CEO of the National Youth of, oh, you may want to give me a proper round of applause. So we'll have the MC take over now to give us a few house announcements about where we go from here. But the panelists, including the CEO, the guest speaker, and the two deputy CEOs, will take a group photograph from here. And then I understand the next would be to go for lunch. Everybody go straight to my opposite, and then the panel members and the executives will take to our left. So thank you all very much for participating this afternoon, and then thank you very much, panel members as well. The MC, thank you very much. The mic is yours now.
Thank you so much. Shall we give them another round of applause? Okay, so right from here, we are moving for our snack break. The ushers will take you through the corridor to the back to have your snack break before we come back for the second session. So the pictures will be taken, and then the ushers will take us for the snack break. Thank you.